1872. Charles James Catherine's in 1874, which is the father of Finney, also died. So, yes, you're right. That whole area, whether it's next door and even the hotel that we stayed at, which was a bed and breakfast across the street, had paranormal activity. So if you follow it from a geographical area, because what we did, when we do like investigations, we will look at the geographical areas of things, and we'll look down through the satellite. And what you want to do is you want to check on the grids and the ley lines, and you can kind of find out where the magnetic field is. And you almost look at major portals or certain areas that open up. And if you look at the aerial view of Atchison, Kansas as a whole, you will see that it's set up and surrounded by a lot of portals and landlines. So it's really controversial because, truthfully, there's a lot of allegations about the houses and the things that happen, but there's not a lot of substantial proof. It's a lot of it is just hearsay. However, when you start to investigate the town, when you start to go to the places on first-hand experience and you get a little bit more knowledge and you're picking up stuff, you're getting stuff in photos, you start to connect the dots and you start to link everything together and you say, hey, wait a minute, you know what? This isn't just driven on speculation. There is a lot of truth to this. The problem is there's so many groups that are coming in there and doing investigations. You're going to hear, 200 different sides of the story. You have one person that says, okay, you know what, this is what this is, and another person says, this is what that is. And you never really could get down to the core of what's going on. And truthfully, I don't think you'll ever really know 100% of what's happening, but this whole air of mystery of the Sallie House has shifted to, is it demonic? Is it human? Is it human spirits? Is it tormented spirits? Is it inhuman spirits? And you'll have a lot of different views and outlooks on it and opinions, depending on what background you come from dealing with the paranormal or what road you take it, into it. So the only thing you can do, or what I did was, you know what, let's go and spend 3 days in the house. Let's find out if there's any truth to what's happening, and let's see if the Pickmans were telling the truth and weren't exaggerating. Because when you do paranormal investigating, you have to definitely go in from a skeptic standpoint, and that's what we did. We went in there expecting nothing, hoping to come out with something, and we did.
Well, we're talking about, of course, the Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas, and for a lot of people, their first exposure to that location came from the television show Sightings, which went and filmed there when the Pickmans were there. Now, they were renters to the property. They lived there with a newborn son, a young son, I believe, and that's where a lot of the stories first started to come from. And that's the spirit that they supposedly encountered is how it got the name Sallie House. Why don't we talk a little bit about that and how it became to be known as the Sallie House?
Well, I can answer a little bit of that. I believe that they believed way back when there was someone that lived in the house and there was a child that was there that I'm not sure if they believed it was an interracial relationship or something, and that a child was created and kept a secret. That's one of the stories. There's a lot of very different myths about how this person became of. People who've gone in there have claimed to see a child. Deborah and Tony Pickman have seen a child. Different people have seen different things. But to me, this is just the enemy taking the form of something so innocent as a child in order to gain the doorway to open up and get the acceptance to let something else come through in order to be destructive. Joe, I don't know if you want to add a little bit more to that. I'm just going on what I know as far as background and what I've heard. But like I said, he was there. I don't know exactly the whole story of what he saw, but there's so many different stories that have gone around for years, and that's where I think that they came up with the name Sallie. Also, an old-time psychic, I think his name was Peter James, also claimed that he had saw the spirit of a little girl named Sallie and had told the Pickmans that that's who was in the home, and this is why they entertained that there was another child there when their child, who's now going to college, was in the home, and they tried to accept and, bought toys and things like that for this child, another crib. It's just a very weird story, but that's the ones that are out there. And, Joe, if you want to enlighten them, please.
Yeah. As far as what the Pickmans experienced, when Deb and Tony lived there, they moved in there, I believe it was December 31st in 1992. What they were claiming in CNC, what happened was Tony was the one that was experiencing a lot of the activity that was going on. From what I remember, Deborah really wasn't experiencing that much, although she did follow closely on what was happening. First, it was said that there was human spirits that were in the home. There was a female. There was a jealous female spirit. There were the younger spirits of children that were in there. Just a bunch of different things that were going on. But however, the end result with Tony Pickman is no matter what the allegation was, he was the one that seemed to get attacked all the time, whether it was burns, whether it was scratches, bruises that would appear. He became the center focus of, he got the brunt of everything in the house. I mean, he's the one that really took took it hard. The problem is that although the groups and teams that were going in there, even Peter James that went in there, they were all trying to say that, there was human spirits, there was this, there was that. Nobody really got to the bottom of what it was. Now, Deborah Pickman, I will say, she knows a lot of this stuff in depth of what they went through because obviously they lived there. But even when we had met the Pickmans and we had talked to them when we first went to the home, they believed for the longest time that they were human spirits. Their whole mentality changed as time went on to shifting that it was more of a darker, demonic in nature. And that's where the whole separation point is. So now you have groups that say, there are aggravated spirits, there were tormented spirits. There was another group that went in there that said that they contacted the spirits that lived there, and there was good ones, there was younger ones, there was kids, there was, so it got a little bit crazy. And I won't say that any investigator that does an investigation is crazy, because everybody is open to seeing and getting different things, but it still kept reverting back to being demonic. It kept going back to there's something else going on, and it was almost like this spirit, we'll say.
All right, I hate to interrupt you. We have to take a break for the news. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk more about it. But we do have to take a break for the news. We'll be right back. Sorry to cut you off we'll be right back.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, Citadel Broadcasting, AM 1420, WBSM.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. Right now in Libya's capital, rebel forces are making their moves. Gunfire and explosions rock Tripoli. Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, in a recorded statement on Libyan government TV, attacks Europe, NATO, the Gulf states, and even Libyans who support the rebels. ABC's Jeffrey Kaufman in neighboring Tunisia.
It's very clear that Gaddafi is losing his hold on Libya. 3 of his senior ministers have abandoned him in the last couple of days, including the oil minister. Tunisia, the neighboring country, which has been neutral throughout the Libyan revolution, officially recognized the rebels. And most importantly, the fighting is now on the streets of Tripoli. Cities around Tripoli have already fallen. It seems now to be only a matter of time before Gaddafi completely loses control, but it's not clear what he'll do or where he will go. Jeffrey Kaufman, ABC News, Tunis.
Bringing up the rear of the Republican presidential hopefuls, Utah Governor John Huntsman now attacking his rivals for saying that they would not have raised the debt ceiling, telling ABC's Jake Tapper that would have been catastrophic for the markets and for people's investments.
Would you trust a President Bachmann to do the right thing with the economy?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily trust any of my opponents right now who are on a recent debate stage with me when every single one of them would have allowed this country to default.
Huntsman's criticizing Texas Governor Rick Perry for statements doubting evolution and climate change. And Perry was back in South Carolina, an early primary state. He's been touting the state's economic health. ABC's Jim Avila looked into it.
His state leads the way in low-wage jobs, almost 10% of the employed making minimum wage or less, compared to 6% nationwide. And with a poverty rate of 17%, Texas is among the 10 poorest states in the nation.
Yet another swirling tropical storm to watch far out in the Atlantic, Irene, east of the Leeward Islands. Forecasters say it's too soon to predict any threat to the U.S. You're listening to ABC News.
Hey, my name is Amy and I work at Lowe's. Summer's not over yet, and grilling season is still going strong. Luckily, Lowe's has low prices on items across the store. Right now, stop by and get a Grillmaster 3-burner gas grill for just $169, or a Master Forge 2-burner patio grill for only $199. Then cool things off with a 50-foot Never Kink water hose, now just $26.98. Find these and more everyday low prices right now at Lowe's. Lowe's, let's build something together. Some restrictions apply. See store for details.
Calling people using long distance was draining my wallet. So to save money, I'm only calling people with toll-free numbers. Do any of my friends have them? No. Any family members? Nope. You know, no one I call has a toll-free number. So, Mom, if you're listening, I got your messages. Tell Cousin Tommy I hope all is well. And honestly, would it hurt you to look into an 800 number? I'm your only son, for crying out loud.
There's an easier way to save. Get online. Go to geico.com, get a quote, or follow this guy's toll-free penchant and call 1-800-947-AUTO.
Where could you find 1 million people doing the same thing together? That was the estimated crowd on a hot, dusty airfield in Spain, a prayer vigil with Pope Benedict. Firefighters atop fire trucks sprayed the crowds with water from hoses. It was all cut short, though, by a thunderstorm. The Pope is due back at the airport for Sunday Mass. At least some marketers seem to want aging baby boomers' money.
The forever young mentality of the post-World War II generation will fuel a booming industry, pushing the U.S. market for anti-aging products from wrinkle creams to facelifts to more than $114 billion over the next 4 years. Boomers can choose to be part of that market or opt out. Former President Bill Clinton told ABC's Barbara Walters he's been a vegan for the past year.
I just essentially quit eating animal products, including dairy.
That after heart bypass surgery. Specialists on aging say diet and exercise are way more effective in keeping you young at heart than hormone therapies and expensive cosmetics. Joan Bennett, ABC News.
Making its first public appearance since the bench-clearing brawl earlier in the week in Beijing.
Georgetown is on the court. I'm sure everybody knows.
Georgetown men's basketball team running a drill session with local high schoolers at a Nike-sponsored event in Shanghai. The Chinese announcer telling the crowd that Georgetown could have left but decided to stay. Please give them a round of applause. And they did.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach.
This is ABC News.
Are you struggling with too much credit card debt? Sky-high interest rates? Having trouble just making the monthly minimums? We're Credit Card Relief. We've helped thousands of people become debt-free in months instead of years, all while saving thousands of dollars. The consultation is free and the relief is real. Call Credit Card Relief, 866-333-9191. That's 866-333-9191. Not available in all states.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
There's always a moment. The moment you decide to get involved, to get engaged.
This is my
American story.
When you teach someone to read, they have a sense of self-fulfillment.
Seeing family, friends fall victim to gang violence, drugs, it definitely made me want to serve.
There was a hole in the ground, and by the time we left, there was a house.
I realized that these kids were not getting a meal.
It is so easy to give back.
I don't have a lot of money to help people, but I do have something. I have time.
You can give any skill you have.
I see a great need in my community.
Just imagine how strong a society we could be.
This is Barack Obama. Every one of us has a role to play in making our communities and our country stronger. Discover yours. Help us continue to make a difference in the life of our nation. Go to serve.gov and find the opportunity that works for you. And this message is brought to you by the Corporation for National and Community Service.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, Citadel Broadcasting, AM 1420, WBSM.
the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
All right, welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz, and we're fumbling our way through the show. I guess we're surviving. Apologies to our guests, of course, Don Pierce and Joe Cetrone, for cutting them off so abruptly, but we had to figure out how to make the news happen and how to run the legal ID before we broke the law. So sorry about that, guys. Sorry to cut you off like that.
That's okay.
And now, Don, I know that you've got a situation at home, so if you need to go at any time, just feel free and let us know. You still doing okay?
I'm okay right now, thank you.
Okay, just let me know if you need to go, and we'll be glad to let you get your rest.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Now, we are broadcasting on WBSM and also on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com. We had a little bit of a hiccup with that, but that's now working great. And we also had mentioned at the beginning of the show that we were going to give you a little bit more information about the Haunted History Night 2011 happening in Wareham, Massachusetts. Again, the tickets are $99 a piece, and for that you're going to get lectures from myself and Jeff Belanger of GhostVillage.com and 30-odd Minutes TV and the author of more than a dozen books on the paranormal. And you'll also get dinner at the Mill Pond Diner there because it's centrally located with all these things. And you'll get to investigate the old Methodist Meeting House, the one-room schoolhouse, and the Union Chapel. These are all buildings from the early 1800s. And you'll also get to investigate the Fearing Tavern, the infamous Fearing Tavern, which was originally built in the 1690s. And it looks like it did back then. And there's plenty of artifacts and different haunted happenings that have been going on there over the years. You just saw it on this week's episode of 30-odd Minutes. So you'll get to investigate that. We're also working on securing the Tremont Nail Factory, which is from, I believe, 1838, the current building that's standing up there. So it's going to be a great night. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of investigation done. If you're a first-time investigator, it's a great way to get out and learn. If you've never been on a ghost hunt before, it's a great way to experience the paranormal. And if you have been and you're a seasoned investigator, it's a great way to get into some of these locations that aren't really open to groups. So it's a special thing that we put together with the Wareham Historical Society. October 15th, it'll be from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. And you'll get plenty of time to investigate all those sites for only $99. To get your tickets, go to SpookySouthCoast.com/event, and you can pay for them right there with PayPal. And if you need to let us know that you want to go and for some reason you can't buy a ticket that way, email us spookycrew@SpookySouthCoast.com, or you can give us a call on our hotline, 508-444-2661, 508-444-2661. So there we go. Now that we get that little promo out of the way, we can get back to talking about the Sallie House with Don Pierce and Joe Cetrone. And we were talking the story of Sallie and how it became the Sallie House, Joe, before I had to cut you off there. And from the information that I found from the official Sallie House website that's run by the Pickmans, is that, as you were saying, the previous owner had encountered the spirit named Sallie, and that Mr. Pickman had actually verified that that was the spirit that he encountered. But I also got to take a step back, too, to what Don was saying. Kind of whatever's there, especially where there's all this talk of it being a negative spirit, it can kind of take whatever form it wants, can it?
Absolutely, and that's what I wanted to clear up and say. If you want to, from an investigative standpoint, if you put everything aside of what somebody says this one is or what they experience, and if you just take that all out and get to the meat of the story, you have the Pickmans who moved into this house. You have Tony that was getting attacked, okay? But Sallie itself, the girl Sallie, it was never confirmed that there was a girl named Sallie. There was rumors that was, going around saying that, this girl Sallie died, doctor, under the knife, that she had died. But it was never confirmed. talking to Tony, and really, actually both of them, both Deb and Tony, talking to them as we were interviewing them, you can see where this presence, that when we were in there, it would change, and it could change into what I call it shape-shifting, for lack of better terms. This thing could shift identities to make you feel what it wanted to feel. So when you went into the house originally, you felt like, this can't be haunted. This is a great feeling in here. It smelled clean. It was fresh. It was like uplifting. And then as the time went on in each of the days through the course of the hours, there was also a big heaviness that started to come in. And every time we would sense a spirit presence, we would smell lilacs. We would smell flower, different types of flowers. And then it would get to a rotten smell. And then it would change. So it was almost like the house reeled you in, made you feel comfortable. You second-guessed if it was actually haunted. You had this peacefulness. And then all of a sudden, there was a heaviness that happened. And every time the heaviness happened, Tony got attacked. I was there to witness on 3 events where Tony Pickman had gotten attacked. He got scratched on his forehead, he got scratched on his back, and he got scratched on his wrist, and it all happened in front of us. I mean, for me, doing research, you see a lot of things. You capture a lot of orbs. Some have human faces in it. You get some good EVPs. I mean, you know, as an investigator, that's all the stuff that you look for. However, when you're there and you're talking to somebody, and all of a sudden 3 scratch marks appear before their forehead, and blood is coming down, and you have a paramedic present to tend to the wounds to make sure it was authentic, and you see it happen in front of you, and you're saying to yourself, that couldn't have just happened like that. Like, it's mind-boggling when it first happens, and that's what we were experiencing. We were experiencing, each and every one of us were seeing a different side of this spirit, and I truly believe it. And I know that there's people out there who will say, no, it's this spirit or it's that. Mm-hmm. I personally believe that it is definitely an inhuman spirit that can shift identities into whatever it wants you to be. If it wants to be a little kid, it'll be a little child. If it wants to appear to you that it's a human spirit, it can do that as well. I think whatever that can grab your attention enough to give it attention and feed off of that, that's when this spirit resurrects.
So if it does have that ability and it can, you know, change its identity at will, I mean, we would assume that any spirit, you know, can kind of pretend to be something it wasn't if it wanted to be. But the force at which it's able to do this and the maliciousness behind what it seems to be doing is what's led a lot of people to believe that it's demonic, to the point where the Pickmans have put on the Sallie House website that that it is a demonic case, and that they really, you know, people shouldn't just go in there willy-nilly to investigate, because it is open to so many different investigative groups now. In your experiences there and what you know about of what's happened there, it sounds like Tony's really been the one taking the brunt of it, but how much of a danger does it pose to other investigators?
Can I say something on that for a minute?
Sure.
I was looking at the Pickman site today, and they have added a disclaimer on there that going to the house could lead to attachment of spirits. You know, I don't think that people don't understand. Everybody wants to experience something. They want to believe, and I think these groups going in, they don't know what they're going to handle. I mean, I know that Joe, you know, went in with an open mind, and everything had happened there. But you got to understand too, even if you're not directly involved with the house, if you have something to do with someone who's going in the house, other people are experiencing the same things too. And I mean, that warning on there is a good disclaimer, you know, so people know about this. But it just amazes me how many people still want to go to this site. And you know, I just wanted to throw that out there, because I looked at the site today and I couldn't believe they had put that on there. But I think that's a good warning that people really need to heed. And
it certainly seems like, you know, when you do put that on there, it's going to draw a lot more interest. You're going to find groups that are going to want to go there because maybe they haven't. Let's see, how can I put this in a way that's not insulting to groups, but they haven't had a demonic case yet in their case files, so they want to have something. They want to have that experience, and I think that you may actually be doing just as much damage as good by putting something like that up there. But again, I'll ask that question to you, Joe, that I mentioned before: is how much of a danger does it pose physically to others, aside from just the attachment possibility? I mean, can you go in there and really get your butt whooped?
Well, absolutely, because that's exactly what we did, and that's what I was going to lead to say. You've got so many groups that are out there, and everybody wants to be the group. They want to be the one that goes in there, and they do everything right, and they get all the evidence, and it's that wow factor. Once you've got past that wow factor, once you verify that there is life after death, when you verify that you know that when you're done here on this earth, you're going somewhere else, you're open to that. Mm-hmm. What you do after that is totally up to you, because some people get so engulfed and wrapped up with it that it consumes them. Now, with a house like the Sallie House, with a case like that, you're going in there and you're going to something that isn't just a human haunting, and that's still up for speculation, even when you're dealing with human hauntings. I mean, look, seeking the dead for profit and gain is not the way to really go. You do it because you want to research it. You do it because you want to help a family. If it requires you doing a home blessing, then you go ahead and do it. If somebody wants verification, yes, we know. We can do that. But when you take it to that next step and you deal with a case that's dark like the Sallie House, you're opening yourself up to a lot of things. So, absolutely, the problem with the Sallie House is, and Deb will definitely back me up on this, it became a lab, a science lab, that investigators would go in there and they would, do all their studying and investigating. That was the problem, when it became like a test lab for investigators to go in there. That's when they got blindsided, because you got a lot of inexperienced investigators that went in there. They didn't take the proper precautions, whether it was using prayer or whatever they do to cover themselves when they go in there, when they leave, because these spirits attach themselves to you. They can follow you. And that leads up to what I was going to say. The book that I wrote on the Sallie House case, on the 3-day investigation, was not a book that was written to show anything that we did that was right. It was what we did that was wrong. We got caught up in the media. We were thinking that, hey, look, we can make this into a show. This is going to be great. Let's take it to another level. And everybody, all the investigators that went in there, that came out, when we got back, everybody got hit with a certain oppression, from who lost their homes to relationships that were severed, to people going into a major depression, to my son, who even got attacked by a spirit.
Wow.
Yeah, he actually got attacked by a spirit. My mother was with him. They were in New York. I was on another case. He had a total scratch mark right across his head, and when my mother took the picture, you could see a white cloud of smoke that was right next to him. That's when I says, I think I pushed the envelope a little bit too far. I'm going to take it more seriously, and I'm going to do cases that I know people need help, and that's what I'm doing. If that's my genuine motive is to help that person, and I'm not thinking of any gain for myself, then I'll do that. But just to go into a house that's haunted and play with these things, that's a no-no. And I hope that, young groups out there will realize that you can't go in there and call out these things, because they will get you. They will find a way during the course of whatever time frame, because there's no time in the spirit realm. They can wait. And I truly 100% believe that if you're not going in there with a right motive, if you're not going there covered in how you need to be covered, usually, for us, when we deal with dark demonic cases, usually with prayer and faith, along with, scientific research at the same time. We have to balance both, but that's the tough thing, and I can't emphasize it enough. And the end result is you get attacked, your family could get attacked, You can experience oppression, depression, suicide, all sorts of things that happen when you're dealing with the afterlife, because you really don't know what's there.
Well, Don, I'll say this. When I first received the email from our show's content director, Chris Balzano, he had been discussing things with you about putting together this episode of the show, and I kind of got the impression from what you were sharing back and forth with Chris that the location and the awesome power of the haunting there and the attention that you knew it would receive had come about, and there was a potential movie in the works, and that it ended up ripping apart your group. I didn't understand at first. I thought maybe it was the basic politics of the paranormal, where, you know, when the chance comes to make the next leap and to become, you know, the next Taps or the next, Ghost Adventures or whatever, that's what kind of weighs on a group and tears them apart. I didn't even take into account when reading over that email that it could have been these, demonic forces that were actually working. Is that what you feel happened? Do you feel that it was the influence of this entity more so than just the general, paranormal politics?
Yes, on a lot of different levels. I think we were all kind of torn in different ways. At the time, I was living in Massachusetts. That's where I grew up and everything. It was strange because the way we came together, like I said, we were in a past group together. We separated from that, and Joe and another member had formed Rydia, and I came aboard, and they worked on the stuff that was going on in my house. But the situation I had going on in my house intensified from this one case. Also, everybody just got a hard hit. And, it was like nobody knew who we were one day, and another day everybody knew who we were. It just seemed like things came so simple to us. I don't know if there was some sort of, divine plan that we didn't even know what was going to happen. But the case had come to us, from someone else who had said, hey, look, we need your help. You guys have a different way of going in with this. And, we kind of felt strong as a group. We go in with a Bible, prayer, holy water, and, a little bit of a different in our faith, a little bit of a different point of view. But I don't think any of us were prepared for what this case was going to do on the inside and outside. I didn't go on the investigation, but I was affected, attacked, many different ways, and some of it was the same time while they were doing the investigation in the house. So, this is kind of stuff that went on for years, to the point where, my haunting got so bad, and with all the efforts and everything else that went on, we ended up leaving, and that's why I'm basically, out of where I was, in Massachusetts. I needed a new start. I couldn't take it no more. My capacity as far as mentally broke down too, and it did that between our family. My husband was like the last to see anything. He believed, but he was the last to see anything. It was me and my son that were being attacked constantly, and then finally, my husband saw it, and he was like, okay, what do we do? But from there, I think we've all grown. From 2005 to now, we've grown. I know in our house we've grown spiritually, in our faith, in our religion, and everything, but it kind of took that little extra push, sadly, to know that there is something that we need to do that we cannot see, that we need to change in our lives, and that's what happened for me. I can't speak for anybody else, but, in debt, we had a lot of things happen.
Well, that's huge to have such a life-altering experience and to have it help your faith grow. I've heard of many paranormal investigators who have had their faith, I'll say, verified maybe by investigating the paranormal. But to have somebody, have something really push them that hard, it just sounds like as much of it might have been a negative experience, maybe it was supposed to happen. Maybe it was supposed to have that effect on you in that way.
I'm hoping that was the reason. Like I said, we all been through a lot of stuff, and I was having experiences before the Sallie House case, but it seemed it got worse. Joe can tell you. There was an EVP sent, but unfortunately, I don't think you guys were able to get it in time for the show. What came out my basement was are just unbelievably, I mean, I hear it and I cringe. It's terrible.
Well, what can you describe it to us? I mean, we can't play it tonight because our technical whiz isn't here, but Chris said he's going to put it up on the website. Can you just describe for us what you hear?
Well, one of the investigations first that I had, I've had it like maybe 3 times blessed over, and it was like it did not want to go. I had first heard in my son's room on my own recorder. I can't really say the language of it, but as the house was being blessed, I heard I was a dead witch, basically, that it was going to kill me, and it was such a deep voice. And then another one was like laughing and calling me names. It was a really spooky sound. But as one of the investigations, it was me, Joe, and another fellow of the group, Mike. We went into the basement, and I was holding the candle at the time, and they had some flashlights, and they were throwing around some holy water. And as Michael was praying, it was the strangest thing. I got this weird feeling over me. I heard him say, "This is now a house of Christ. You're not welcome here, any more evil spirits." And we heard nothing. We had 3 tape recorders in here, and we heard nothing by the physical ear. But when Joe rewinded his recorder, we heard something that sounded like a cross between, I want to say, a donkey being kicked, like it sounded like an animal being severed with the sound that came out of it. And I think everybody that hears it is blown away. I mean, it's just something that is just, it was so loud. And, I mean, Joe could tell you a little bit more. It was on his finding. I mean, he was going through the tape, and he was using an analog, and I'm using top-of-the-line digital, and I got nothing. So it was really strange.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. I mean, personally for me, I came in before I got involved with the paranormal and investigating. It was more spiritual for me. As I got into the paranormal, I learned to fuse both things together. So I was in contact with people like Dave Schrader, Jason Grant, Keith Johnson. I mean, I got to meet a lot of people and work with some excellent investigators out there. When I got that EVP, I think it was Keith Johnson, that I called him up and I played him that EVP over the phone, and he was blown away by that. I sent it to EVP experts, and they all came back and said, "Look, dude, this is authentic. I haven't heard anything like this before." But as Dawn said, it was literally like a mule being kicked. It was so powerful, and the energy that it must have had to be able to be that profound, to just come out with a growl that was like, what is that? I really, to me, if you were to get a baseball bat and whack a mule, that sound that it would give you is the sound that came over that EVP. And till this day, if you listen to it, it sends chills. I mean, it's one of those EVPs that you never get sick of hearing, because you still say, I cannot believe that came out of your analog tape recorder.
Well, we are talking with Don Pierce and Joe Cetrone about the Sallie House and their experiences that have happened as a result of an investigation of that location. I mean, I'm sure that you've networked with a lot of other investigators who have gone into the Sallie House. Have they reported a lot of the same similar phenomena that happened to you? Has anybody else been able to get a similar EVP out as a result?
I believe the investigators that I know that went in there, one of them was Todd Bates. He was heavily involved with the case before we were involved. He worked with the Pickmans right around that time that they were filming that thing on Sightings. He got some incredible EVPs out of that house. He also went under attack. His family got attacked. It almost ruined him, from how I gathered, ruined him as a person, that case, because you become so wrapped up into it. I've worked with Denise Jones at the Sallie House. She joined in on the investigation on the Dark Hauntings project, was with Denise Jones, and everybody that was involved with that case took something back with them. To say, hey, you know what? It was a great experience in one aspect, to verify that, you know what, Deb and Tony were telling the truth. They weren't crackpots. We watched them. We watched Tony get attacked. So we verified that, okay, we know now it's haunted. Now, is it human? Is it inhuman? That'll always remain a mystery. I believe it's an inhuman demonic entity that's in that house. But everybody takes something back with them to say, hey, wait a minute, you know what? This is a wake-up call for all teens out there that you have to watch out what you do, because fame, fortune, money, television shows, pilot series, whatever your gain is, whatever your personal motive is, to get out there and use that paranormal world as your stage to do it, I would really consider thinking twice about why you're doing it, because that's the time where I believe you get blindsided, and that's the time where I think you run into a lot of things, and there's a lot of spiritual forces out there that don't want things to happen, and somehow, some way, the universal order always works out that they win. In the end, they win, and that's what you have to think of it. So take your lessons, learn what you can learn, because it can be very dangerous, very tricky, and very deceiving if you're not grounded both spiritually and as a paranormal investigator.
And, I mean, that's good advice for sure, but, I mean, it also doesn't have to be something as profound as the Sallie House to have that occur either. A lot of people can be experiencing what they think is a run-of-the-mill haunting, and it gets to the point where it develops into something way more evil and way more harmful than that. One of the cases that I've heard about in this area was something similar. It was a private residence, a private case, and as soon as people started to hover around it and want to get involved, it made a turn for the even worse. It's almost like it's almost like I can't decide in my own mind if this demonic entity is deciding that it doesn't want the fame and fortune to happen for the investigators, that it doesn't want to have itself exposed to a more of a general public. And then on the other side, I'm wondering if it's trying to deliver to make sure that that does happen, so that it gets even more, even more souls that can come in there that it can try to control. So it's kind of like a two-sided coin for it, because if you're the demon, you either don't want it to happen or you like the feeding frenzy idea. In your mind, this entity that's at the Sallie House, do you think that it craves that attention? Do you think that it wants to bring in more people and bring in more attention?
Absolutely, I do. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if originally when a team goes in there that has fascination, and that's how you know when you're getting swept up in the Sallie House, is as much as you fear it, as much as it's intriguing, as much as you know you shouldn't be in there, is all the more you want to go in there. You become so wrapped up with, I have to get in that house. I have to be in that house. I have to go. There's something that's drawing you there. Once it draws you there, once it knows it has your attention there and it has you in, it can be whatever it wants to be. I think that it wants you to believe that it's human. I think it wants you to believe that there are human spirits and somewhere along are trapped in an outer darkness within that home to keep you coming back, thinking that you're helping it. And all the time, it's playing a joke on you. That's what I really think. I truly believe that it plays with your emotions and it plays with the things that you are believing it is, that you're hoping that it is, and it becomes that. And then once you're totally hooked and it's got you, then it can do whatever it wants. And that's what I believe is happening with cases like that. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be a Sallie House type of case for it to be anything less harmful, going into a house that may not have hardly any paranormal activity, just a little bit. These spirits, I think, here's my overall picture in a nutshell. There was a time where you had the separation between the spirit world and the physical world. Now, because there's so much paranormal investigating going on, there's so much poking holes that the veil between the both worlds are just totally torn. So spirits can come and go now. So now, if you're one to believe that so we're surrounded by lots of human spirits, then you have to believe that somewhere along the line there are inhuman spirits that are getting in here, and they're taking that to the next level. So yeah, sure, it can familiarize itself as a human spirit and play games with anybody it wants to do it, because I think it thrives off of that now.
Well, we are talking again with Don Pierce and Joe Cetrone about the Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas, one of the most haunted places in the world. If you have any questions and you'd like to join in the discussion, the phone numbers are 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. You can also text us at 508-444-2661. And there's also questions in the chat room. If you just go to Spooky TV on SpookySouthcoast.com, you can get in the chat room there, and I'll read a few of the questions from the chat room. One of them is Low Battery Dave wants to know how much of the "be afraid, be very afraid" mantra that comes out of so many of these places is really just designed to keep other investigators out. Now, that doesn't sound like this is the case with the Sallie House, which is open for paranormal investigators, but do you think that sometimes these stories will come about because a group wants to maintain control over a certain location?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Is anything in any business, in anything that you do, it can be whether it's in sports, whether it's in whatever, the paranormal world has now finally has got a name and has a voice now. So that's a soap opera within a soap opera. You've got who's feuding with this one, who's territorial, who's saying, well, this group was here first, this group has more experience, this group is a senior rank, this group is here. So, yeah, absolutely. It's territorial right now. And it's become a lot of gossip, a lot of feuding, a lot of backstabbing. I hate to say it like that, but, yeah, absolutely. So if a group takes claim of a certain area or a certain investigation and they hold tight to that and they live off of that, and another group comes along who maybe isn't known or hasn't been in that area, absolutely. They'll detour them with any way that they possibly can, whether it's, okay, hey, you know what, that house is cleansed, there's nothing in here. So, yes, the answer, in short, to his question is, yes, I believe that.
And, Don, this question is for you. Taking a step back of how you got involved with things in the first place, is you had your own severe demonic haunting in your own home. And the question in the chat room is if the haunting from the Sallie House, if whatever that entity is, somehow fueled what was going on in your own home, even beyond just what you've shared with us already.
Yeah. What was the?
Oh, there we go. It's you.
Kind of felt like there was something there, and you kind of get that feeling. You look over your shoulder and you think there's somebody watching you, but there's nobody there. I had a couple different things happening in my life at that time. My father-in-law was in the middle of passing, and he did pass, and I'd smell his cologne. I think I was a victim in the sense of I wanted to believe that, it's just my father-in-law coming to visit, things like that. It started off, so I gave it a foothold. That's what it goes for, that familiar spirit thing. Then the situation started getting worse. As I was helping other people, I was feeling good that I was helping them, but not realizing that I needed to pay more attention to the home front. My son was very small at the time. To this day, he still don't sleep in his own room, even though we're not in the same house. He has a lot of problems because of the things that he remembers that happened. It was attacks on him, other things. And when the Sallie House came into play, I wanted to go investigate. I'm kind of glad I didn't, but there was a lot of things going on. I mean, we got to the point where we were hearing things, doors were rattling, knocking, moving stuff. Just a breakdown in my marriage at first because my husband wasn't hearing anything or seeing anything. He believed there was something there, and I was dabbling. I admit now because my next door neighbor, she was into witchcraft, and she had introduced me to tarot cards, and the tarot cards were coming so easy to me, and I should have known this is all like some sort of trap. Everything and anything. I wasn't using, Ouija board or anything like that, but just little things in the area where I was set up with. We were attached to 4 houses. The house next to me was practicing witchcraft. The next house next to them was doing sacrifices in their basement for their religion on goats. And the ones on the end were just dabbling in whatever possibly could be. And, it got out of control that everybody was experiencing something and coming to me, asking me to help them. And here I am taking all this energy back in to my own home And as the Sallie House case was happening, I was experiencing some of the things that one of the other investigators was experiencing, not even in my own house anymore. It would be, I could be in a public place and feel attacked. You know, certain things would happen. So, yeah, I think once you open one door, it's like a chain reaction, even with the EVPs. You're listening to what's going on. You know, first it's like interesting. You're running this tape and saying, wow, you know, I didn't hear that with my own ear. And I was hearing first a child in my house, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, this could be the kid that passed in my home. You know, I'm hearing this and that, and it just becomes one whole big, I want to feel like it's like one whole big vortex and sucks you in. And, you know, you think you're doing something good, and you're really making it worse. So I think that people need to understand that, you know, for me it was more like I needed to understand what the word was of God and practice that more than looking for outside sources in causing that more commotion. So, and like I said, for some reason these cases came so easy to us. People trusted us. We were going in with a different point of view. You know, Todd Bates was the one who was being attacked, wanted us to help, and then gave us the Sallie House case in return, you know, saying, hey, look, maybe you can help these people. And it just kind of snowballed, is the only way to put it.
Well, there was a mention in the chat room on Spooky TV about the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast here nearby in Fall River, Massachusetts. And looking over the story of the Sallie House before the show, I saw a lot of parallels between the properties and between the history of the properties. Obviously, there, you know, we're a couple axe murders shy at the Sallie House of equating the more recent history of Lizzie Borden's. But one of the things that really stood out to me was in the house that's next door to the Sallie House, which is actually built by the son of the original inhabitant of the Sallie House. Eventually, it was deeded to a Johanna Barnes, and she was a divorced mother of 3 with another child on the way. Her son, Frank Wright Barnes, was born on July 13th, 1899. She had spent time in a mental hospital for mental instability. And then on September 24th, 1906, her son died when him and the mother were laid downstairs in a cot from inhaling gas. It sounds like, well, I'm sorry, the mother survived, but he died. It sounds like that was, you know, an attempted suicide murder there. Has anybody looked into that and tried to find out more about that part of the whole Sallie House story, and if either that had an effect, or if it was a cause, or if it was an effect?
Well, that's a great question, because, you know what, as you were speaking, you just jogged my memory on something. While we were there, Michael, my partner, had done some research on the house next to us, next to the Sallie House, and he had even said that he believed that house was just as haunted, if not more haunted, than the Sallie House. And then you mentioned the name Joanna, which just rang a bell, too. In one of the days that we were at the Sallie House during that whole 3-day weekend, one of the investigative teams that popped in there had talked about a couple of different spirits that they believed was in the home. And they believed there was 2 children and a mother. And one of them was named Joanna. And that's what the girl who was there believed it was. She believed that it was a mother and 2 kids, and they had to be there. And some sort of parallel that they were trying to help this girl, Sallie, that was in the house, and be a family. So once again, looking at it from a different perspective of how somebody interprets what they think is in that house. And that brings us back to dealing with inhuman, shape-shifting type of spirits who could probably lead you to believe that. The problem is there's so many holes that we'll never get all the answers that we'll never, all the questions that we have, they'll never be answered until that time comes where we cross over, where we transition from this world. But I think we can get a good grip on at least 60% of the problem. 60% of the problem, I believe, right now, as it stands, in the state that this world is in general, I think a lot of it is being occupied by inhuman spirits who are playing with the minds of a lot of us investigators, and I include myself in that. Look, we're all experts, but we're really not experts. We're still trial and error. We're still susceptible to attack. And as long as we are, we're always going to be victims. It's just who's going to make it through less victimized than the next person. That's what's really it is about. It becomes a thing of chance right now. The more you get involved with the unseen world.
Well, we're going to wrap up the discussion here in a couple minutes because we're going to talk with Chris Balzano about next week's Bridgewater Triangle episode. But I'll ask this. Don, from what I understand, I mean, this case and the way that it's affected you, even remotely, has kind of, led to you taking kind of a step back. And we talked about your renewed faith, but I mean, what's on the horizon for you in the paranormal world and in regards to the Sallie House?
Well, I've kind of taken a full break from everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just had another child, and I'm trying to focus on the family and keep that together. Thank you. I'm trying to keep that together. Am I ready to jump back into something? Absolutely not. Am I here for people who want help or referral to someplace? Absolutely. Since I've been down here, I actually have had one case that I tried to get involved with a little bit too early, and I didn't have any backup, didn't have anybody to really turn to, so I had to kind of let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I've had other cases that I've referred off to other people that I know that could handle it, and actually in New Hampshire kind of area, and I get an occasional call here and there saying, I know that you've worked with this one or that one, can you help me? That's all fine. I don't mind getting, telling people what I've been through and trying to shy them away to doing their own investigation or trying to look into anything deeper. But I have my family, and I try to work on that. And as far as the paranormal, I don't know if I'll ever step back fully in the ring, but I know where, the answers are, and I'm trying to do what I can for me first. I have to help my family first before I can help somebody else's family. And I hope that doesn't sound too selfish, because I'm one of these people that I try to help everybody, and I got to realize that sometimes I get too involved with something else instead of what's right in front of me.
Well, see, now I don't think that sounds selfish at all. I think that sounds refreshingly self-centered. Not self-centered in a bad way, like self-grounded. It sounds like, more paranormal investigators should have that kind of approach to feel like they're ready to go in and face this when a lot of times they're not. So to have somebody say that they want to take a step back, the whole I want to work on me, that we kind of laugh at people, when they're talking about relationships, but it's the same thing. You need to work on yourself. You need to be ready. And like you said, you might not ever be ready to do that. And to have somebody who can say that and who has had opportunities to follow this through in the media and to possibly profit off of it, and to have somebody in your shoes like that step back and say, I'm not ready for that, it's refreshing. And it's not something that you experience a lot of in the paranormal. One guy, though, who's going to keep making money off of this kind of stuff is Joe Cetrone, because he's got the book Sallie House, Exposing the Beast Within, and now you say you're working on a new book called Seduced by Lies, Joe. I was just pulling your leg a little bit there, but what's the new book about?
Seduced by Lies is exactly what it sounds like. It's the first half of it is telling my story throughout the years that I kept a journal that I logged into all my supernatural encounters. It's a book that is going to have the reader interact, where they could play paranormal investigator, they could listen to the claims, they can listen to the allegations, and they have a questionnaire they can go over and break down. It's also live interaction, where I send them to a website and I give them evidence and photos to view. And then after that, I do the second half of the book is just a breakdown of my interpretation of what I think is going on behind the world, in the unseen world right now, how a lot of us are being seduced by the lies in the spirit realm and lies dealing with inhuman spirits and the dangers of the paranormal. So that's what that book is about. It's going to be really interesting when it does come out, because I think it's going to appease both sides. It's going to the skeptic. It's going to help the skeptic. It's going to help the paranormal investigator, and it's going to help the person that's seeking spiritual answers. So I try to kill three birds with one stone in that one.
And people can keep up to date with that on your website, Spiritfire7. That's Spiritfire, the number 7.com. And it says in your bio that you're a former hard rock drummer. Do you still drum or is that something that's in your past now?
Well, former hard rock drummer, yes. I played with Iron Maiden tribute bands back in the day, Ronnie James Dio tribute band. I mean, I played in so many. Right now, we do seminars. When we talk about stuff like this in the seminars, we usually have music, and I'll do that. So, yeah, I'll play alternative type of music, but I'm away from the club scene, and I finally put that to rest now. So I'm enjoying drums for what it is now.
Well, but we do have a paranormal rock band, the EVPs. So, and although Matt Moniz is a fine drummer, we could always use some more expertise. So next time we have a gig, maybe we'll give you a call.
Absolutely. Do it. I'll be there.
All right, good. You can teach us some Maiden. Sounds good. All right, thank you both for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep us up to date, though, if anything continues to happen in relation to the Sallie House case. Just let us know.
Thank you for having us.
All
right, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
All right, and now we're just going to have Chris Balzano join us for a few minutes to talk about next week. Go ahead, Chris. You can call the VIP line now. We're going to have our annual Bridgewater Triangle investigation show, and it's going to be the March of Anawan, but it's going to be different than ever before because we're going to have so many groups out there and so many different locations covered, and we're not going to have time to call in and check in with all of them as we normally would. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to use social media and internet interaction to get things going. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out how to do, and I'm not a Twitter guy. Hopefully somebody out there is a Twitter person, and they can help us out. But we're hoping to have everybody that's out there, each group or each investigator, somebody's got to have access to Twitter on their phone. And what they can do is they can actually use the hashtag that we're going to come up with, which we're still talking about. Spooky Triangle might be it, but and they can use that to tweet from wherever they are, and then people can stay in the discussion by using that hashtag. So let's go right to Chris here because he probably knows more. What's up, dude?
Hey, how are you tonight? Great interview, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing them in touch with us. We have about 4 or 5 minutes here to talk about what we've got planned for next week, and I know that you've got kind of the full list going of who's on board and especially what locations will be covered.
Yep, I think taking the part of the Chris Balzano in-studio role, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be, what's his name, Manny and Chris from the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yep, they should be joining us as far as I know. And I thought I'd heard that Tiffany Rice was joining us in studio, but that might be changing.
Oh, yes, I'll get to that. That's
okay.
Actually, I think, the most exciting part of what we're planning right now. So we do have Bay State Paranormal, which is a couple of our other friends, Eric and Jason, kind of hooking up with them. And they're going to do Burial Hill in Plymouth. It's really cool. We've got some new places that we're going to. And then there's a group kind of headed by Kathy Kasem, who I need to know a little bit more about her. We're finding out, but she's going to be our...
Paranormal Granny. Yeah.
Oh, is that who that is?
Yeah, she's more known by that name. Huh.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like Kathy Caslin, nobody knows who you mean, but yeah, Paranormal Granny.
Right.
Yeah.
She's going to be taking over the Route 44 and hopefully hooking up with, at least ahead of time, with Andy to follow up on a recent redhead hitchhiker sighting just slightly off 44, off like a road off 44. We've got some people from near, kind of led by Nathan Mayer, who's a good fan of the show. They're going to be doing the Sonnet Ledge and Profile Rock. We've got John Brightman and his group, which is, I think, New England Paranormal Research. They're going to be with Joe and Brady, and they're actually going to the Shack and hopefully the Pet Cemetery, which is another location that I've never actually been to, but that I've heard a lot of interesting things about. Whaling City Ghost is going to be going out to Lakeville. They're really kind of being secretive about what the exact location is, which is kind of cool. And then Paranormal Pilgrim is going to be doing the tracks that run behind the racetrack. So looking at the old T-tracks and see if they can come up with stuff basically on the edge of the Wampanoag of the swamp. So, but then the really cool one that we were just talking about was great fans of the show, Mark and Dave. They're going to be hooking up. Hopefully, we can get this planned. They're going to be hooking up with Tiffany Rice to kind of track down an old urban legend, see if they can actually speak to the Ames brother who crashed his plane, and it became kind of the spark for the urban legends at Stonehill College. but he actually crashed his plane in Randolph. So we're going to see if we can get those guys out there and see if to the actual crash site, see if we can get them to make contact with either Ames or the quote-unquote, fine young lady he had with him, and maybe even the dead dog that died in the plane crash. So it's kind of very cool because we have a lot of different sites that we haven't been to before, and so it's going to be kind of a new look. The whole approach is going to be really cool, and especially with these new sites.
Excellent. For all the investigators who are listening, we will have some information out to all of you this week. We're also hoping to put together a conference call at some point during the week as well, just to get everybody on the same page. But if you still want to get involved, you can email us spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com, or you can head out into the the Bridgewater Triangle area, head out to some of these locations. Try not to contaminate anybody else's investigation, of course. But you can also get out there, see what you can expose for yourself, and we'll announce the hashtag on the show next week so that everybody who's tweeting can get involved as well. So it's going to be a marathon night for us. Hopefully we can get through it. Now you'll be available though. You'll be by the phone, right?
I'm actually going to be hopefully getting evidence and information from the people as well, and getting it up on the site. Not only the Twitter account, but also actually on the site of these different locations. So the person who asked if there's going to be any on-site video, if people can get me the video and I can get it up, we'll have it hopefully within minutes of them sending it to me.
And I'm still going to mess around with the Ustream account, too, and see if we can't find a way to incorporate some of that video if I can get it just as quickly. So who knows? We'll fly by the seat of our pants. That's what we do here. It's what we always do, and it's how we survive. It's how we made it through tonight without the silent assassin Matt Costa here. He'll be back next week, though. We told him no matter what, you can't take next Saturday night off because there's no way we can handle all this stuff and the technical aspects, too. So we're going to hope that everything shuts down here correctly, and I'm going to try and upload the last 2 weeks' worth of shows before we leave. So next week, again, the annual Bridgewater Triangle show. We should be starting to. Do you know what time the Red Sox are on, Chris? Next week?
For some reason, I thought they actually had their early game, which is why it was working out perfectly.
Let's hope so. So we'll be on at our regular 10 o'clock start time, 10:15 thereabouts, and we'll go as long as we need to go until we get the whole thing done. So that will be next week. Stay tuned to SpookySouthCoast.com for all the updates during the course of the week. And I know there's no episode of Spirit Connections this Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, but we do have a new show that's going to be joining us soon, and we'll have details about that soon from a good friend of the program who's been on many times with us. So until next week, for Matt Costa, who's not here, who's out having a good time and a few drinks, I'm sure.
Lucky bugger.
For Chris Balzano, who is always here in some form or fashion, and for Matt Moniz, who has suffered through the indignity of having to work that computer without having any idea of what's going on. We'll get you further trained on that, I promise.
I hope so.
So, and now, of course, I'm Tim Weisberg. So until next week, we want you all to stay spooktacular.
First with local news, talk, and sports. And this is WBSM New Bedford, Citadel Broadcasting, AM 1420, WBSM.
Reign of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi appears to be crumbling after reports of mortar shelling and gunfire in the capital city of Tripoli. Rebels took control of a hospital overnight Friday, and by Saturday morning, doctors like Ahmed Abu Gandar were celebrating.
I'm very happy I'm back to my hospital. I'm happy to treat people just what I like do. Not enforced by Gaddafi army.
Rebel troops seized control of Zawiya, a major coastal city not far from the capital. Rebel leaders called it the start of an attack on Gaddafi's main stronghold. Retaliation by both Palestinians and Israel continues, with militants in Gaza responding earlier today. ABC's Jordana Miller reports from Jerusalem.
Israelis in the south spent the day running in and out of bomb shelters and safe rooms. Militants in Gaza fired over 50 rockets and mortars on their cities. One Grad missile tore through a home in the city of Beersheba, killing one man and leaving another in critical condition. Israeli defense officials have promised a harsh response. More airstrikes on Gaza are expected. Hamas and the Popular Resistance Committee, the group Israel believes carried out Thursday's deadly terrorist attacks, have claimed responsibility for the rocket attacks. Jordana Miller, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Flash flooding in parts of Pittsburgh Saturday, with water up to 9 feet, turning backyards into rivers and submerging cars. ABC's Rob